All right, we are live on Facebook. Hello, Facebook friends. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and we're going to go right into tonight's theme, which is relationships as evolution. And so I'm asking each of our guests to give their name and then share with us what that means. So, Trish, as my partner in the show, what does evolutionary relationship mean to you?
Hmm. Evolution is our relationship is an opportunity to consciously grow into a better version of yourself. And many years ago you had this meme that it stuck with me so hard. Like it was on my phone and I'm going to butcher it. Try to help me out here, but it sounded a little like your relationships are there to really like your triggers and relationships are there to help you find what's next. It's like a higher form of consciousness. I'm gonna find it while we're on the show.
Yeah, well, we used to always teach that there's treasure in the trigger. There's treasure in the trigger. Because when we go into the trigger, we learn more about ourselves and about each other. And speaking of evolutionary relationships, we actually have with us the founder, creator, the man who makes Evolve Fest happen. He's putting together an amazing festival with over 100 incredible teachers. Welcome, Eugene.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, Trish. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Monique, for being here. Um, yeah, for me, there's something about relationship that brings us to a certain quality of presence. And so one of the reasons that we can evolve so much through relationship is because when we're engaged in connection, we bring all of ourselves to it. We bring ourselves physically, emotionally, energetically to that. So it's an opportunity to actually really feel all of ourselves in that moment in the reflection of other. And the concept of an evolutionary relationship is one where in the moment of that presence, as I'm relating with you, I'm challenged to another level of presence where I don't drop into a complacency in life and inspired to be more of me, to be more of the me that is evolving, that I am becoming. So we can have relationships where we get stuck or we play out old patterns. But when we're talking about evolutionary relationships, they're the ones that actually inspire us to grow and evolve and change, sometimes even beyond the relationship itself. That's like, we're stepping into a bigger story of love, that love exists beyond the functionality of our relationship. So that's a snippet.
Beautiful. Well, we're going to hear a lot more from all of you. I get to put the spotlight on one of my dearest friends. This is Monique Journey. And I've known Monique, gosh, well over 10 years now, Monique. I think maybe 12.
A long time.
Long time. And you are in a beautiful relationship with Peter. What do you have to say about evolutionary relationship?
Well, one of my favorite quotes that I ever saw on relationships is it says, "Don't commit to me, commit to evolving, and I'll meet you there." And like Peter and I took that as our motto when we had our ceremony. And it's just been such a deep reminder to really be committed to your own evolution. And for me, that's what evolving relationships are, is you're really, really tuned into what's the next level, what's the next space. And so I'll tell my lovers and the people in my life, like, if I can't fall in love with myself more when I'm with you, and if you're not falling in love more with yourself when you're with me, then let's talk about how this relationship should transition. Because that's the greatest form of relating, is when you're actually falling more in love with yourself when you're with another.
That's beautiful. So we're going to hear from all of us, especially our guests. I want to welcome people in our Zoom room. I want to welcome those of you watching on Facebook, and I want to welcome those of you who watch the video recording, which is really the majority of people. I am going to go straight to the website though, because Evolve Fest is happening starting this week, and Trish and Monique and I are all blessed to be presenters. Eugene, tell us a little bit more about Evolve Fest and how people can register.
Yeah, so the festival was inspired by just this. It's the recognition that, and I've been noticing it over time. Like maybe I would, when I teach at Burning Man, maybe I'll do 8, 10 different events, and the events that were about relationship dynamics, whether it's attachment theory or it's exploring concepts around non-monogamy or alternative relationship styles. Those were actually larger than some of the ceremonies that we would do. And I could feel, even in a straight talk, just, talking to people for 2 hours, you could feel the level of engagement and emotion in the room, and that people would line up to talk afterwards, more people, and stayed longer than in some of like the great tantric ceremonies that really satisfy my ego. And then noticing the same thing as I've been, transitioning in the last year to online events, that even through the screen, the thing that draws people in most is connection, and where they lean in most and they have the most questions isn't just the meditations and the practices, but they want to know, what's going on in me? Why can't I find the partner I'm looking for? How can I get some tools and some expertise and some support to explore new ways? I want to open to the possibility of love and freedom coexisting, but I'm scared of getting hurt. Or is it okay that I can be a tantric and be monogamous at the same time? Like, there's so many questions around relating. And I said, let's do a festival that's only about relating. And let's bring in experts from around the world, many different backgrounds, that are living these principles. And so co-creating with Rachel Rickards, who is, the co-founder of Embodied Intimacy and relating openly. And it's like central to their lives to actually shine a spotlight on, like, here we are, and here's all the messiness, and here's all the rewards as well. And then knowing that, people like you, Scott, Trish, Monique, and so many other amazing people that I'm aware of, and I actually want to become aware of. Who are the thought leaders that are out there? Who are the people that are trying on new things? Who are the people who are actually coming at it from a different point of view and a different language that can reach people that I would never reach? And let's just have a festival that's all about supporting us to have evolutionary relationships, whatever they look like for us, because it's going to be different for everybody. And that's why I want to give them like a lot of information so people can find their truth and seek a truth that's accurate today and is also impermanent and changing. Right. So that's how Evolve Fest came about. And it's online. It starts on Wednesday the 17th, or 18th if you're in if you're in Australia, New Zealand. But 17th to 21st, we need to update that. We have almost 100 presenters. Wow. It's 24 hours a day. We have also emotional support and technical support teams that are open 24 hours a day, and we have a lounge so that people, even like they've had amazing workshop experiences and they want to stay connected, and they actually maybe want to meet and connect with people. We have a lounge you can go to 24 hours that's being held, where people can just connect and meet each other as well. So I'm super excited to have a focused festival, like this much information and content that's all about you finding the relationship dynamic that supports you to love you more, to evolve more consciously, more intentionally in this life. So that's it.
It's a lot. I just want to say a couple things that I'm really impressed with. You have just a remarkable group of presenters. I mean, I've been around this world, the kind of relationship, alternative lifestyle, tantra world a long time, and you've got like so many of different generations. You've got old timers like me, but then you've got a lot of the young'uns like Trish, and everything in between: black, brown, yellow, white, German, South American. It's a really beautiful combination. And when I was looking over the schedule yesterday, I was like, oh my God, I want to attend like half these workshops. They're all really fascinating. Now, it's being recorded, correct? So if people buy a ticket and they can't make certain ones, they'll have access to the recordings.
They'll have access to the recordings for a full month. So, because even if you are there live, I mean, even if you're driven enough to stay awake 24 hours for 5 days, still, there's maybe 2 or 3 things happening at the same time, which, maybe you have multiple screens going on. There might be some people that level of evolution, but I'm not there yet. So the recordings are going to help me to take in this information so I can up-level my relationships too.
Great, beautiful. So I just want to remind everyone, I'm going to go one last time. The place to go to register, and it's only like the regular price ticket is only $199 for over 100 teachers and recordings. It's unbelievable. Of course, it's all online, and you just go.
And also just
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Just
ahead.
to speak about the tickets, we do have a sliding scale that's available to people on the spot. So it goes from 99 to 199. So you can even give yourself a deep discount if you need, because we understand that during this time, we're all in very different financial situations.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. So everybody go to evolvefest.online. EVOLVE, Evolve Fest, FEST .online. And that's where it's happening. And you can register. And Trish and I are going to be teaching together on Wednesday at 4:30. And then she's teaching later that evening at 7:30. And Monique and Eugene and 100 other amazing people. So, okay, I have a question. So, oh, go ahead, Trish.
Oh, I just want to read some of the names of these amazing workshops. Well, the ones that I want to go to. That's the
Yeah.
one that I can pull off right now. It's like The Art of Deep Listening with Martha Lee, who's an amazing sexologist from
Singapore.
Singapore. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Dr. Martha Terley.
Yes. There's Monique's class is The Art of Adoration ceremony, which I'm super excited to read. McCulco is teaching Dating Your Species. There's just some really amazing classes on sacred relating, the art of clearing relationship karma, transforming jealousy into love, the depths of love, approaching sex, love, relationships as a practice. Like it's just so exciting to see a festival that's like fully focused on connection, on relationship, and really taking your relationship to the next level, right?
I'm kind of going through all the different workshops. This is Germany time, so don't base it on the times that you're looking at. But yeah, look at these amazing workshops and these amazing people. Art of Adoration. I've done Monique's ceremonies. They're so beautiful, so incredibly beautiful.
I'm so excited to watch the interview with Rachel Jessica Fern of Polysecure. She's revolutionary in taking attachment theory and like making it feasible for non-monogamous folks.
Look at all this. It just goes on and on and on. Evelina Rose, Arminta Barber. I mean, these are all just remarkable human beings. Buster, Rachel's partner, amazing. David Cates, who's incredible. Wow. And the great Eugene Headland. Now that's an interesting one. The generosity of selfishness. Give us the elevator pitch for that one.
Yeah, well, selfishness gets a bad rap because we imagine if I take care of myself, I'm actually taking something away from other people. But the only thing I'm taking away from other people when I take care of myself is the responsibility for them to take care of me. So if I can actually show up having done what I need to take care of myself, then you are free to fully show up as you. And then we can actually relate any way that feels good for us from the overflow of love, as opposed to, the unspoken contracts that we're going to fulfill each other's needs.
Okay.
Guess who's taking that class?
Huh?
I said, guess who's taking that class?
It's a really good one, Trish. Really
I'm
good.
taking your class too. Don't you worry. You'll see me again. I'm stalking.
So we're going to start taking questions from the people in our Zoom room and also people on Facebook. But I do have two questions that I wanted to start with you guys. Is this just for people that are poly or exploring poly and alternative lifestyle, or is it open, to everybody? Because there's obviously a lot of poly topics. So just curious about that.
Well, the great thing that I've seen throughout the years with poly topics is that if it works for multiple relationships, then it better well work for one relationship. So you can come and learn all of these different skills and tools that can work with multiple ongoing relationships. But if you really take the time to dive deep into any one of those subjects, it's going to transform your relationship, whatever it looks like, with your kids, with your parents, with past generations, with one beloved. So, yes, so lots of people, there's a lot of hype around polyamory and multiple relating and non-monogamy because it's just newer. And so people are like, Howard, that's happening. How do I do it? But all of those same skills and tools work in whatever type of relating that you're doing.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, so evolutionary relationship. most of us grew up as children and were taught a terrible lie. We were taught, and they lived happily ever after. Yeah. Every fairy story, everything, and they lived happily. And really, I'm sure as coaches, coaches, I still work with people that are adults, intelligent adults, that still believe that if they find the right person, if they find their prince or their princess, it's going to be easy, because they're going to live happily ever after, because that was the childhood story. So I'm just curious if any of you want to share your personal experience of how you maybe moved from where most of us were when we were younger, looking for the one to make you happy, to seeing relationship as a form of evolution and it not being so much about finding the right one. How's that been for you guys? Trish?
I did find the meme that you posted you posted 2.5 years ago. Oh, wait, actually 2018. And it goes a little like this. The real purpose of our most intimate relationships is to raise consciousness. And in the sense of like dissolving the whole Disney belief system around happily ever after, there's this idea that nobody's going to argue, there's not going to be any friction, it's going to be all like rainbows and butterflies and like unicorn farts, and actually it's going to be crunchy, because there's 7.8 billion realities on this planet, and the likelihood that I'm like sitting in the same room with, well, anybody, you guys included, that I'm sitting in there and being like not have any friction in our entire existence together, it's just unrealistic, right? Based on so many things about what I believe, what my version or how I feel loved. Like I feel loved, or I feel loved when I like someone brings me a cup of tea and tells me like, you did great today. Oh, great. Like that's how you can pet me. I know how to pet you, Scott. You like your head rubbed, and that's how you feel loved. So it's like finding ways to play in that. I just read a book called The Couples Workbook by the School of Life, and it's written by multiple psychologists around the world. And my favorite line in this whole book says, "You'll be ready for love when you realize that nobody's compatible." And I laughed out loud, but it also made a lot of sense to me, because I'm like, oh, if I can just take that whole concept, then I can just pick someone or someone's and just be like, oh, I can love you there, and all of you, in all of me.
Beautiful. Monique,
Yeah.
I'm going to put the spotlight on you for a moment, because you have one of the most fascinating stories of anyone I know. Growing up a good Mormon girl, and kind of in a very traditional, super traditional, conservative lifestyle, and you married and you had children, and now well, before COVID, you traveled the world teaching Tantra and helping women be liberated. And so tell us a little bit about your journey, because I know some of my viewers haven't met you before.
So I was following the fairy tale, like in our religion, then you're supposed to get married in the temple, and then you can have your family forever, and like all of the things way beyond what Disney even says. And they're like, you have to follow all of these things, and if you do, if you're good enough, then you go to heaven and you're with your family. And like that, just I wanted to go to heaven, and so I tried to follow those things, and guess what, we weren't happy. Like we were miserable, and there was so much that didn't work, and I'm like, but I want the thing. And so somewhere along the line, then I realized that there's one relationship, there's only one relationship that you are going to have your entire existence, and that's the relationship with yourself. And so I started working, like one of my deepest passages was going to Eugene's training in Bali, like, I don't know, 3.5, 4 years ago. And my deepest issue was trust, and I didn't recognize it. And I went in knowing like that my soul was saying, well, my intention is trust. And throughout the first 2 weeks of that month, then I felt like this little tiny child that couldn't trust the world. The world was falling apart because that little girl was finally able to be held in all the ways that I wasn't held when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And so when I left that training, and as I've continued just loving and loving all those pieces, then my relationships with my husband, which we're still married, and we have these 3 beautiful boys that are beginning their own life. They're all young men now, and I have a beautiful partner and several lovers around the world. And there's this really deep bond, but it's there because I made it with myself. And so from that place, and they're each living their own life and they're loving themselves. And so then when we meet, then there's just overflow. And there's crunchiness, there's fighting, especially because Peter and I are the day to day. And I'm like, but Peter, how can you sleep when we can be making love? And he's like, oh, why do you want to make love when we can be sleeping? Let's take care of our bodies. And as one example, but there's the deepest, like the more that you love yourself, then the more that you really, really dive in to finding where you're not compromising with one another. So you're being sovereign, but you're also finding the places where you can complement and you can give a gift. So you're not compromising, you're giving the gift of, I'll meet you here because I have the abundance to be able to do so.
Now, Eugene, you're in a relationship for over 5 years, I believe. Tell us about that and your current personal experience.
Yeah, well, what I, my journey is funny. I also was Mormon, so this is where we end up.
I didn't know that.
And believed in the fairy tale and actually pointed myself towards it. And I look back, first I look back with pain, then you eventually learn to look back with compassion because we were doing our best at the time with the information we had. But I filtered everything through the lens of, if there's conflict, if there's struggle in a relationship, then something is wrong. And then that sat side by side with the part of me that felt like, the way I relate was abnormal, because I was really curious about, the possibility that we could love more than one. And the only, information I had about that is that it was evil and wrong. And so there was a lot of self-loathing and fear and contraction in me as it relates to relationships. And then you kind of bring that to relationship, but of course I wouldn't bring it out front. I would just kind of hide it and, like, oh, look, I've got it all figured out. But secretly I'm just a complete contracted mess. And relationships would, oddly enough, play out that way, where, once the honeymoon phase has passed, then all these things that I don't want to look at in myself start coming to bear. And usually then it becomes what's wrong with them or what's wrong with me, and just playing that out. And it's something I recognize, having been lucky enough to find some tools and some different people or some different ways of relating in life, and tools to understand what was happening inside of me. I have the compassion to recognize what it's like to get in these, in these dynamics. But even not so long ago, before this relationship, I was in another toxic dynamic where, again, there was still, that's the great myth is, I'm going to do enough workshops, I'm going to get enough certificates, and then it's all, it's like, oh, the happily ever after wasn't when I found the right partner, it's when I get the right certificate from some freaking guru. Now I've got it all figured out. It's like, no, actually, what I've found personally and in a relationship is the more powerfully that we love ourselves, the more we invite love to actually be at the center of our relationships, the more triggers come up. Because in the presence of love, all the things that are not love will begin to reveal themselves.
Yes.
And, and so that was a huge reframe for me to step out of the story that if there's a conflict, something is wrong, but instead not go to the other extreme of like, oh, well, it just means we love each other. But it's like actually to be curious about it. What is the nature of the conflict? What is coming up? Is there something coming up in this space that actually has been afraid to reveal itself, but now it senses the love that is between us? And so now it's coming up because it wants to be included. And that's actually something for me, because it's something I'm excluding, that's wanting, it's putting its hand up. And, it's like the child waking up in the middle of the night saying, can I have a hug? And, that's, the sort of the core of a powerful relationship dynamic is that we don't go to the extreme. I think, Trisha, you were giving the example of like, that sense that I'm going to find my clone out there and we're never going to have conflict. If you could, that would be tragic, because you also would have no creativity and no eros. there's no energy. It's just like, wow, we're best friends, and let's turn on Netflix together. That's great, and we can go through life that way, but we're not necessarily really participating in our evolution. Then there's the other extreme where it's all conflict and all intensity. It's the opposites attract thing. It's like, oh, wow, it's juicy and it's alive. And if we've been in the librarian mode, we're super excited about the rock star mode, but it's not sustainable because it's like, fuck, sometimes I just don't want to process my traumas all the time. Can't I just be loved? And a lot of us kind of go back and forth between the two. And so, in my relationship, what we've always held core is not the I love you, because love can exist regardless of what our dynamic is, but actually, I don't need you. It's constantly taking responsibility for our whole self so that we have the resources to choose each other again and again, or to choose something else. If that's, in the wedding vows, one that was most precious to me was, I love the part of you that may leave me as much as the part of you that's choosing me today. Because we can't exclude that part of somebody and love them unconditionally. And that's it, and it may be the most painful scenario, but if I really love you, then I love you as you living your life, not how you fit into mine.
Everybody should go back, replay that about 5 times. Because you just gave a really beautiful and powerful expression of evolutionary relationship. So, question maybe for Monique or Trish. I'm thinking of the people watching who still do need their lover, or want to need their lover, or want to be needed, right? And obviously, we're not here to shame anyone, right? Or to even present that there's better or worse. So, anybody have anything to say about that human part of us that longs to be needed and longs to, to connect, and how to find that balance of what he's talking about while acknowledging our perfectly human desire to be needed or to need.
Okay. Well, it's we're tribal, right? We're family oriented in some capacity. Like even the agoraphobics still want connection. And I know it's just how it works for me in my poor brain. So even people who like to isolate still want connection and still want to be wanted and needed and generally want to be some sort like collaboratory in the world. And for me, it really is to figure out how to learn how to self-source. To self-source before I come to you and say, Scott, this is what I did. I got really clear. I really want to connect, and I'm just not sure how to do that. You got any ideas? And so then it creates a collaboration, a way to connect that's not me like, Scott, the way that I need to connect right now is like this, like I need you to cook, and I need you to clean for me, and I need so that I can do this. It becomes less about me and more about us. It becomes this thing that we do together, right? And that's actually what most people want, is connection, is togetherness, so the neediness is really pointing at a place of a want or a value that's really seeking to be heard, seeking to be seen and loved there.
Yeah.
My lover and I, he's so sweet. Like I'll have a meltdown. I'll just be like melting down for whatever. Like there's a lot of things coming up right now. And he says to me, I'm like in the middle of it. And he'll be like, I can love you there. I'm not loving me right there right now. Can you just give me a minute? And then I get a cup of tea, and then he pets my head, and then I'm like, oh yeah. Right? And so it is finding that balance of finding the inner center, the sovereignty, the place where I can meet my needs and the capacity that I can, and then I can come to any of you and be like, hey, I really want link. And it's okay to be needy. I just want to say it's okay to be needy. We are humans. I need sleep. I need touches. I need communication. I need these things. If you want to call me needy for it, go ahead. Rake me across the internet.
Beautiful. Monique, thank you, Trish. I love you so much. I want to be Misha when I grow up. Monique, what are your thoughts?
Well, when Eugene first told me about this festival, then I went through my whole list of what do I want to offer, because there's so many subjects that I've taught on relating. And underneath all of it, like the art of adoration is what comes up for me, because so many of us go through our lives really, really longing to be received fully. And so this ceremony is all about learning how to receive, because as you look at the world, then you'll see everyone's trying to give, like we have most of us, I'll say most people in the world really have these beautiful hearts, and they're wanting to offer something. They're wanting to give gifts, especially the people that they love. But when we're all trying to give, there's no one there to receive it. So the more that you can practice being receptive, that you can be open, then you can receive these gifts that are around you, again, from parents, from children, from lovers, from community. Then you're getting those needs fulfilled in all of these different ways. And then that your cup opens up more, and then you can receive more. And so then there starts being this place of, instead of this, oh no, I need, then you're loving those pieces. Okay. I really need connection right now. Going and ask, like Trish said so beautifully, but then there's the places where you're starting to fill those needs up. And so then it starts becoming, oh, if I could ask for anything, what do I really want? And then it starts up leveling the languaging and that internal feeling, because you've learned that you're worthy. You've learned that you're lovable just the way you are. And so then you can open and receive the love that's just waiting there to be given to you.
Beautiful. So I always like to ask questions about the hard stuff. So for Monique, you're in a very healthy relationship. I know you, I know Peter, it's a solid relationship. But inevitably, there are times that one of you wants something from the other, or maybe even needs something from the other, and it's not alive or really real for that person to provide it. How do you manage that?
Well, that after, as you know, because I called you a couple times, Scott, after like a year and a half of having one particular conversation over and over again, and I'm like, oh, we just can't meet. Then we found this place of, can we just be held? So again, it's coming back to that receptive mode. And so it's really like being in all of that longing and that need, and the other person saying, I'm not available for it, but I'm available to hold you in that longing. And most of the time that was enough. Sometimes it's like, no, I can't even be held there. So let's go to our own separate things and I'll go fulfill it myself. But it was just being able to be held without suppressing that longing, or without the other person shaming you for that longing. And that did a huge world of good for our relationship.
I'm so glad you shared that. And, you know, the way that can look for those watching is to acknowledge the beauty of the unmet need, right? So one person, let's say, and I'm not talking about Monique now, let's say one person's longing for sex that night and the other person's just not there. The person who's not in the space to be sexual, if they can acknowledge the beauty of the longing to make love and acknowledge the uncomfortable feelings that come with not getting that need met, that creates a different kind of intimacy. It's not sexual intimacy, but it's emotional intimacy. And it's like you're like Monique, and really all three of you have been talking about this in different ways, being held in presence of what is. So it's really leaving the shame cycle and leaving, you know, it sounds like that was a big part of your journey, Eugene, you know, when you were still putting on a front, you know, during the Mormon days, but inside it was just like chaotic, and so your relationships were chaotic, you know, which is so vulnerable. So we all want to be accepted for who we are, and we all want that beautiful presence that Misha provides Trish, and that Peter provides Monique, and I don't know Eugene's girlfriend's name, but I see pictures of you guys on Facebook. She's lovely. You know, it's a beautiful quality. Yeah. Okay. Another question for all of you. So how does evolutionary relationship fit into a person's spiritual model? Like, is it limited to a particular kind of new agey way of thinking, or can Catholics or Buddhists or Muslims, people that have it, or Mormons, people that have a strong religious tradition, can they embrace evolutionary relating? And if maybe you can give some examples if that's true, if that's possible. Don't be shy.
All right, I'll
Okay,
take
I'll share. Oh, Eugene, go ahead.
Introduce Trish. Go.
We'll go with Trish and then we'll go with Eugene.
Well, I think that it really comes down to what's your goal? Like what's the goal here? Is the goal to do the white picket fence, the whole like once I get all the check marks, then what? And that's really looking at like what happens after all those check marks are. You got the kids, you got the 2.5 kids, you got the white picket fence, you're living in the suburbs. Like what else you want? So when you got all those things, like what's next from there? Is it just gonna like you're gonna ride out and into the sunset and like yeah, that's the place for me anyway. My stepmother was Christian. My father was Catholic. My mom was participated in Iroquois religion. My stepfather was agnostic. So I'm sitting here like, oh, what do I want out of relationship? And that's friendship, an opportunity to walk with my people, my someones. And it's an opportunity to really find where there's barriers to love, right? And that's part of the evolutionary relationships. It doesn't have a spiritual section. It's not necessary there, right?
Beautiful. Thank you. Eugene?
Yeah, it's it could be a really divergent subject, but I'll just name that for a significant period of time after discovering, whatever term we want to put into quotes, whether it's new age or consciousness or whatever, for me, it was 5 rhythms, and then it was shamanic work, and then it was Tantra. And that actually just connected all the dots. And in my earlier, I was working with ritual magic, which is actually at the forefront for me now. And when I came into that world, when you find a new community and you have to change your name and change your clothes and change your friends and all the things. And the truth is, even though I didn't resonate with that particular church, there's a lot of those teachings that touched my heart. And I felt like this was my secret, that I couldn't, admit that, there's stories in the New Testament that I can find no flaw with. And, stories of unconditional love that are unparalleled. And what people have done with that is one thing, but I see it in my field. I see, in the tantric field, I see people constantly who use practices that are meant to create connection to create more separation. It's almost like you would have been better off to have never come to a freaking workshop, because the moment you start to feel superior because you learned something, you're worse off, you're further away. And I see it everywhere. And I look at it because then I see the mirror of myself. How many times have I felt like I've got it figured out and I'm going to go be a tantric missionary, And so, yes, everyone is welcome, because we're all here, because the divine exists in all the ways that we imagine it. And we are all evolving and growing and changing. And the way that my soul vibrates in this life, or even at different eras of my life, may be different than yours. Like for me, the magic is, can I sit with you and have a different experience of what is truth for me right now, and yet we're still connected. That's what like the concept of evolutionary relationship is, that through my relationships, I feel myself more. I love myself more. I actually may love you and may desire that we relate in a certain way for a certain period of time. But my primary commitment is to myself, because it's the only way that I can actually show up for the possibility that we might get to relate the way I desire. And everyone can do that. It doesn't matter what your relationship style is. It doesn't matter what the divine looks like in your mind or your soul or your heart when you imagine it, or what name you put upon it. It is something we are all sharing, an evolutionary process. And there's something so powerful about the mirror of love, the mirror of relationship. When we put love at the center of our relationship, it mirrors back to us all the places that we're not letting love penetrate. And that's true for all of us. And so not only is everyone welcome, I hope everyone comes. I don't want to be surrounded by people who just nod their head and say, wow, everything you said. It's like, because that would be boring to me. And as an introvert, I like literally don't want that. I want people, because the thing is, the soul that believes that they're worthy of love can access the magic of this lifetime. And that soul isn't looking to hurt others. They're looking to live life and inspire others to do the same. And in a world where there's so many people in pain, that we're on the brink of destroying this beautiful planet and each other. I think it's not just something that we do for ourselves and for the love in our life, but we literally are saving the world as we open people's hearts, that it doesn't matter what God or what love look like to you, you're worthy of it, and you can have it here and now. And so I hope everybody comes so that we can all learn about love from each other, because I learn, it's like, a meme, but it's really true. We can learn from anyone. And sometimes the biggest gift is the person that comes at something from a completely different point of view, because I'm like everyone else. I get into the habit of the way I see things. And then I surround myself with people who agree with me, and then we all think the same thing. And, we didn't mean to, but inadvertently, we just start to create a sense of, oh, we know what we're doing and we've got it figured out in life. And so there's a gift of having other people come who have a different point of view, a different way to look at things, because then they help us remember to keep showing up in the unknown and the creativity and the curiosity of life, because that's where love is actually moving from. It's evolving, it's taking us somewhere. So please, I hope that all the religions show up, and all the ways and all the different relationship forms. And the greatest thing we could do is be together, love together, and not know together. The thing is, if we can just not seek the truth and instead seek the capacity to experience the way truth is moving through us individually in the moment, then we can actually all support each other to grow effortlessly.
You are absolutely on fire. Thank you so much.
Oh, I wasn't muted.
I'm reminded as you speak of that beautiful Rumi quote, which I'm paraphrasing, but it's along the lines of, beyond the castle walls of right and wrong, there's a field. I should like to meet you there. And I think that probably is one of the most significant things about the teachers that I know that are teaching at Evolve Fest, the four of us, is we really are doing our best to move beyond good, bad, right, wrong. We're really working on that. And it's tough because we grow up in a world that teaches us good, bad, right, wrong. We just had a president who was very much about good, bad, right, wrong. Don't want to get too political, but I don't think people would argue with that. And in evolutionary relationships, we're transcending that. It's like, okay, it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's different. Wow, why does he see it that way? Why is she doing that? It's being curious as opposed to fanatical. And I guess the last thing I'll say, and then we'd love to hear from one of the gals. Noticing, for me, as I try to be more evolutionary in my relating, I try to notice, when am I collecting evidence to support an existing belief system that I have, versus when am I really curious and open to something different. Einstein had a great quote that, again, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of, the true measure of intelligence is your ability to change your belief systems quickly, right? So anyway, those are some of my thoughts on evolutionary relating. And Trish, Monique, we haven't heard from you for a little bit. I'm putting the spotlight on you.
Well, I love what Eugene just said. And it really comes down to, whether it's a religion, whether it's whatever you believe in, can become a true believer. And then you start feeling like, I have the truth and I must be a missionary for it. I must defend it. And anytime that I have people around me that I put there so they can call me out on those pieces. Like, I love those friendships and those relationships where we can help each other with our blind spots, because we all have them. And so when you're willing to dive into the curiosity of yourself, of each other, and that you see that as that's up leveling, and that's them loving you more because they're willing to kindly point out. And if you're not willing to listen, then maybe not quite so kindly. If you give them permission, then they're like, hey, look, hey, you're still not seeing this thing. And then you get to have an opportunity to relook at it and say, okay, do I still want that relationship to that thing? And if so, great, then you're choosing to do that, but you at least have the opportunity to look at it. Because what I've seen over and over and over again in the fairy tale style of relating is that people think, oh, this isn't the one, so I'm going to go find the next one. Oh, the same stuff's happening again. Why is it always them? And then they go on to a different type of relationship, and then the same things start coming up. And there's one common denominator. It's not those other people, it's you. So whatever relationship you're in, this is your opportunity right now to be able to start looking at those belief systems, at what you feel like is truth. Is it really truth? Who knows? Well, how does it feel in your body? Like, that's the first place I always tell people to go and feel, because your body's not going to lie to you. So you can make up stories in your head, you can feel things in your heart because you're just like, oh, I just want this so badly. But you go to your gut, you go to your body, and you're like, yes or no. And as you start listening to that little inner voice that becomes louder and louder, then it starts becoming impossible to not listen. And so there's the place for you to find your truth. And then you can celebrate everyone else, however different they are. Even if that celebration is, hey, my truth is I could love you the best 10,000 miles away from you. And I totally celebrate you being you. But it's because you had the ability to listen to that inward voice in your body.
Thank you. So important to remember to listen to our bodies. I want to start reading some of the comments, by the way, from our viewers. Wanda, who's in our Zoom room, writes, just to be, no judgment, no analyzing, to show up, pay attention, speak truth, but don't be attached. Truth needs no defending. Beautiful. Thank you, Wanda. And Trish writes about Eugene. He's such a succinct speaker. And Scott writes back to Trish, yes, he's brilliant. That's what our chat box.
Oh my goodness. Scott, so noted. Oh, thank you. It's true.
So, okay. I work a lot with people that are single, and I'm actually the one member of this little quadrant that's also single currently. You've got a boyfriend, whatever you call it, you got a boyfriend.
But I work a lot with singles too.
You do? No, yeah, no. So the point is we work with
work to do, Scott.
Yeah. Point is thinking about people that are single. Maybe they're empty nesters, because I work with a lot of women that are empty nesters now, who sometimes have kind of a perception that it's too late. You know, it's too late to have a healthy relationship. It's too late to have an evolutionary relationship. And I just want to, address that that's out there in the field. So what would you, Trish, say to one of your single clients who are feeling like they've missed the bus? It's too late. They have too much pain, or they're too old, or they're, too damaged. A lot of people believe they're damaged goods. How do you guys manage that when it comes up?
Well, with deep, deep compassion. Because that's the place right there where we all feel too old, too broken, to whatever we're. If we're not in this age group, then we've passed our point and we're spoiled. Like, so when I speak with my single clients, it's really like, oh wow, let's drop into that. Let's see what's under there. How can we love you deeper there? How can we go deeper into that, and really cultivating that relationship with yourself? Because if I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I don't like myself as a single person, I don't like the way that my rhythm works. If I'm just like constantly, flagellating myself, the likelihood that I flagellate my partners or my friends are higher, right? So when I'm seeing like, Scott, we have this survey that we do constantly. And do you know how many people in their 65 to 85 range that have when I call them and I'm like, hey, or when I get them on the phone or on their text, they're like, I think I'm past my point. I don't think that there's any, men out there who want to grow or who want to have fun. And it really hits me hard that I'm like, oh, I'm certain that there's single older men out there who want to just like enjoy and go do whatever it is. It's just like, how do people find each other when they're single? And that's a big question. So it is kind of just, it's coming back to the self-compassion. It's coming back to the self-empathy and reminding yourself, that not all is lost.
Beautiful. Thank you. Monique, I know you have a lot of clients that kind of, or at least in the past, you've had clients that kind of fit that description. Anything you want to add?
Well, I love the coming back to self-compassion, self-love, self-acceptance, because then you're meeting yourself where you're at. But I'll also tell them, look, you have breath. Right now, you're alive. And there's like, it's too late, it's too late. And I'm like, okay, but you're alive right now. So in this moment, take that breath, feel it. What do you want from this place? And it's just bringing back that reminder that it's never too late, because as long as you're drawing that next breath, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to connect to source. You have an opportunity to connect to yourself. And you have an opportunity to connect to those around you that choose to connect with you. And so it's just bringing you back right here, right now in this breath. What do you most long for? Because so often they've shut away, whether it's worthiness, whether they feel like it doesn't exist for me, whether it was so painful, the longing that they had for so long, like especially women when I'm doing yoni massages or doing work with their body, and the longing for pleasure, the longing for that connection was so intense and so painful that their body numbed. Their body just numbed it out. And so as they start coming back in, and it's like, oh, I remember that. I really want that. And then there's a lot of tears, and there's a lot of that mourning for the lost years. And then they're here. And then they're like, okay, I'm ready. I don't want to lose all those years in now. And then you can, when you have that willingness, then you can support them in finding the love that's there in whatever way it looks like.
Beautiful. You're such a wonderful, nurturing person, Monique. Really beautiful. You know, it's interesting when you talked about breath, if we're still breathing. And I was listening to an audio recording of Paramahansa Yogananda. And he passed away like in the early 50s. So this audio recording was probably done in the 30s or 40s. But he said that if you're still breathing, if you're still alive, you have karma. You still have lessons to learn. Even enlightened, semi-enlightened masters, even Yogananda or his guru. And I just really appreciated that. Really stuck with me, that even Yogananda acknowledged, and then somebody asked him what his lessons were, and he talked about discernment, that he struggles with discernment. And so it's true. It's like if we're still alive, there's still opportunities for evolutionary relating, learning how to love ourselves more fully, learning deeper levels of unconditional love, which really is probably self-acceptance. You know, that's like the closest we can come to unconditional love, is really learning to accept what is, instead of judging it, trying to change it, regretting it, having guilt, shame, but like, wow, I did this. And remembering that even things we did that we have shame or embarrassment around, that's not who we are. It's something we did. There's a difference. Right? And really coming back, learning who we are. And I guess that's what I'm imagining evolutionary relating does. It helps us to go beyond the right and the wrong, the good, the bad, the guilt, the shame, the criticism, the judgment, whether it's self-inflicted or inflicted from somebody that, you know, we're in polarization with. Really learning to come to that sweet spot of acceptance.
I feel like we're touching on an energy which is actually the heart of the impulse to create this festival, was the vulnerability. You know, when I shared back, you know, my experiences of teaching on this, and how long people would wait and how much emotion was in the room, it was touching my heart, not my head. You know, it wasn't like, oh, wow, here's an opportunity. It was like, wow, there's more emotion moving in a talk about a concept than when we were trying to do things to elicit emotion. And that brought me to the awareness of how much people are yearning to learn how to love themselves and others more, how to relate, be more intimate, be more close, and feel good about themselves at the same time, and that we don't know. And I began to examine what did I learn, you know, and it's so easy to go to be in the mythology of knowing something. But the festival is actually about dispelling mythologies. It's why we've chosen people who live this, because, you know, any of us who've had a taste of a relationship like this also know it's not guaranteed to last. That no matter what our relationship style is, we can still break each other's hearts. We can still be in the most wretched pain. We can still forget all of our tools. We can still be in a moment of trigger that we destroy the thing that we love most, and then we get to create art about it. You know, like that's still true. And so my yearning, you know, for the event, but also for myself, is to not present in a way that's like, hey, we got something figured out that's unattainable. It's, we've got some things that help us to come back to center, hopefully before we've been too destructive. But actually, hopefully, even if we have been that destructive, because what I was feeling in the story of, you know, singlehood and that deep fear, what if it's too late now?
Mhm.
And, you know, feeling that in my own life, and being aware of a story of a dear brother recently went through a big, you know, a breakup. And there's that moment of feeling love has left me, because there's love at the center of our relationship. And then it's when I put the relationship itself at the center of love, that love exists because of the relationship. And then if the relationship is gone, do I lose the right to have love anymore? Do I then have to go get that? And the journey then to actually come back into some sense, painful as it may be, I'm worthy of love, even if I am alone, even if I am just in my yearning. I'm worthy of receiving love in whatever way I can. Maybe it's friendship, maybe it's some expressions of intimacy, you know, whatever it is, to just, nothing ever separates us from the right to be loved. And my wish, my greatest wish, is that we could plant seeds for people to remember that at the time that it seems most impossible. Because there's a reason we don't want, you know, that we don't lean into relationships like this, because they are powerful, they are challenging. And the pain of loss when you've had the power of depth is even greater. And, you know, we're all walking that tightrope. And it doesn't matter, you know, if we're sitting here on the panel or if we're in the audience, we're the same. And yeah, just remembering that, like that's what we're here to do, is to support each other, to learn and to grow and to plant seeds, not for now, but for when we need them, for when we're alone, feeling unworthy of love, feeling that shame you talked about, or the thing that we did. We're looking at the rubble of our lives, realizing we're the one that knocked down all the things that we built so carefully, and then deciding, like, am I done? Or am I still here? You know, am I cast out, or is there some thread of love still in me that maybe gets met, maybe doesn't, but I have the right to still feel love in my life, whether I have a partner beside me or not.
We're going to wrap up in a moment, but I want to read a comment that came in on Facebook from Jay Mayer, who's a beloved friend of ours. Jay writes, I believe in miracles and I love praying with my partner every day. I'd be deathly afraid with spiritual practices, especially light touch, which is what he teaches and does. I believe that we can invoke those absent feelings that we so long for. Angels, higher beings, invisible forces, fill in the gaps for me. There's always a sweet spot where all the needs are met. So thank you, Jay. Hildegard also is watching, and I was really appreciating what we're having to share. So thank you, Hildegard, and all the people. We've got, like, I don't know, about a dozen people, I think, with us in the Zoom room. So welcome, everybody. And thank you, Wanda. Wanda writes, I am my best friend. I love sharing my friendship. There is no good or bad. There just is. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what Eugene and Monique were saying brought up this thing, this memory for me about a beautiful man that I had seen for many years. He said to me, "Lovers may go, but love always remains," and that just stuck with me for years. And you know, that was one of the most emotionally challenging relationships I've ever been in, and it was by far one of the most profound places where I grew and learned deep, deep things about myself and the work that I needed to do in the world. So another side of evolutionary relationships. Is that it's going to be it's going to be juicy and fun, and it's going to bring up all the things, and give you an opportunity to go even deeper into self-love for you and other places and other people. And
Yeah,
last
quite
thing,
often. Oh, go ahead.
um, of all the classes that I've ever taken on relationships and communication, including Love Coach Academies, that there's a place where I've learned amazing ways to communicate and work through my own like relationship issues is polyamorous like workshops. Wow. Do they have communication down? They know. They're like, here, do it this way. And they're like, oh, come on. Why didn't we get the handbook? Why didn't the monogamous people get the handbook? So come to the poly workshops too, even if you're monogamous, because that's going to give you an opportunity to really show up more loving and build better communication skills. They're fantastic. So don't be afraid of showing up there too.
Point well taken. And yeah, the thing to remember too is it's not about living happily ever after. Most relationships end one way or the other. People die. Monique knew my wife who passed away. I just came across a picture of you and Suchi out in front of Harbin. Came up in my Facebook memories. And so, people die, relationships end, relationships go through different cycles. And again, when our heart breaks, isn't it true that part of evolutionary relationship is our heart breaks open so that we can experience even greater love? And that's a really challenging time when we're having heartbreak, to not contract and go into shame or put up a wall, but to just recognize my heart is broken open. And that's what Rumi taught us, for the heart to break open so that we can experience whatever you want to call it, God, the eternal beloved, spirit, life more fully. And I think that's a big part of evolutionary relationship too. Yeah. All right. Everybody gets a final thought, and then I'll go back and show people where they can learn more about Evolve Fest. And also the class that Trish and I are teaching tomorrow. We're teaching tomorrow for Love Coach Academy, and then we're teaching together for Evolve Fest. So we'll talk about that. But final thought from each of you.
Well, if we're talking about evolutionary relating, then my final thought and hope for each of you is that you create some time and space just for you. Like, what are the things that you are most wanting and waiting for someone to do for you? And go do at least one of those things for yourself tomorrow. Like, plan a date for yourself, make yourself a bath, buy yourself some flowers, go take yourself out to that beautiful dinner or order it in. Like, do the things now for yourself that you're waiting for someone else to do.
Beautiful, Monique. Beautiful wisdom. Thank you. Eugene?
Last thoughts are: nothing you do or say or think or feel will ever make you more or less worthy of love. And just the invitation to not know, to not know, to just keep not knowing, keep experiencing life. And the phrase I've been working with a lot is to stop trying to master love and let love master you.
Woo.
Because love can take you somewhere that your mind could never conceive of. And so that's the center in my life right now, is to stop trying to control and manipulate and have love, but actually to let love master me, to surrender to it so fully, because I can't see everything, but it can, and it's better.
You got a flurry of hearts on our Facebook page when you said that. So somebody watching really enjoyed that. Trish.
Just sitting with what both Eugene and Monique said. Something that's up for me right now, especially, I want to, just in case my little nibbling is watching, that I just want to remind you all that it's okay not to be joyful and gleeful or blissful, that it's okay to be wherever you are. And wherever you are in whatever emotional state that you're in, just remember to give yourself self-empathy, to be compassionate with you first, and really give yourself that opportunity to be kind and loving and repairing yourself there.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think I'm going to use my final thoughts to just remind people where they can get more. So I really want to encourage everybody watching, whether you're watching the video replay or watching tonight live, go to evolvefest.online. I mean, the highest ticket price is only $199. That's like the high one. And then they've got even, lowers than that. So it's an amazing opportunity to come in and really learn from so many master teachers. And again, I'm just so impressed with the collection of people you've brought together, Eugene. And of course, now as I get to know you a little bit better, I'm not surprised because wow, Paul Sterling's here. Evolve Fest online. Paul Sterling has jumped in, who's a master relationship teacher, and Paul actually lives in my home, so he's probably been listening to us. Paul, what jumped out for you and what you heard tonight, or what's alive for you?
I just jumped on right now. Sorry, my timing was a little off, so I'm just jumping in to hang out with some amazing people and learn as much as I can. And hi, Trish. Hi, Monique. Hi, Scott. Hi, Eugene. It's an awesome event. So I'm just joined. Normally, I've got a lot to say, Scott.
Yep. Well, you caught us just as we're wrapping up. So, a final thought about evolutionary relationship, and you certainly teach that and are living it. What does evolutionary relationship mean to you?
Well, the rules, roles, responsibilities of the past may never have worked for people. And they're not working now. And so right now the evolution is we get to recreate it, and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable and it's clumsy trying to figure out who we really want to be rather than just our roles. This is what a man does. This is what a woman does. It's a whole new world out there. And we're trying to create a new system of relating and communicating with each other. So, events like this are critical, and I'm so glad that I get to participate in different ones and on a regular basis. So evolution.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for jumping in. Trish has something very important to share.
So if you guys are watching and you do want to come to the festival, please use the code LOVECOACH in all caps, and that's going to give you a 25% discount. So go, come learn. Like it's right here for you.
evolvefest.online, and the code to get 25% discount is LOVECOACH, all in caps, LOVECOACH. Awesome. And if any of you want to join us tomorrow morning, Trish and I are teaching a class. And I'm really looking forward to this topic, the meaning of life, love and relationships. So that's at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. And there's the link, or you can private message me on Facebook. I'm the only Scott Catamas on the planet, if you're interested in coming. This is part of a 10-week series that Love Coach Academy has been doing. I think it's week 6. You can either buy a ticket just for the single show, the single class tomorrow with Trish and I, or for only $99, you can get all 10 classes. And we send you the recordings of the previous ones. And they've been classes by people like the great Paul Sterling and Trish and other wonderful love coaches. So there's that. So I hope to see you all in Evolve Fest. And thank you for putting this together, Eugene. Really amazing. I have an idea of what it's like to put together a festival like that. It's incredible. So good job. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, people, for watching. And even those watching the recording, still give us your comments. We'll go back and take a look at them. Okay.